Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice radio. So today we are carrying on looking at the deluge of Pokemon information that has come out over the last few days, because apparently, the time I have my first child is the best time for Pokemon to announce a huge amount of new stuff. Good news is, Nana and Pop have come round, and shall we say, they did not take much convincing to look after the baby for 10 minutes while we record this. Today, we're going to be having a look at Altaria-GX. Altaria-GX is looking pretty gosh darn cool. This is coming out in Sun and Moon 7, which means it will be in our Celestial Storm set, which will be coming out in August and will actually be legal for the World Championships, although we'll then have the rotation about a month afterwards. So it is a dragon Pokemon, which means it's got some nice new tricks. You've got Devoured Field to do an extra 10 damage. We've got Zinnia. If you've had a Pokemon KO during the previous turn, then you can attach an extra 2 energy from your hand to one of your dragon Pokemon, which is nice. And of course, we've got Lance Prism Star, another supporter that can only be used if you had a Pokemon KO during your opponent's previous turn, but you get to search for 2 dragon Pokemon and put them onto your bench. And Altaria is a stage 1, not a basic, so this could be used to get Altaria up and running just a little bit faster. It has got 200 HP, which is about standard, to be perfectly honest, for a lot of stage 1 GXs. Think stuff like Sylveon, for instance. And a retreat cost of 1 is good just because it's low. Weakness to Fairy, generally alright, does mean it's going to get smashed by Gardevoir, which is a little bit of a pain, and the aforementioned Sylveon will be very good against it. Other than that, no huge threats at the moment, but it is, as always, the attacks we're going to be looking at here, and it is, as is usually the case, the lovely David Hochmann, Mr. RappelmannTCG, who is bringing us a translation of this lovely bird. First attack: 1 Fairy, 1 Colorless Energy, 50 damage. During your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon does not take damage from attacks from your opponent's EX and GX Pokemon. It basically attacks and then it gets immunity from EXs and GXs the following turn. Kind of like how Jolteon got immunity from Basics, or Glaceon got immunity from evolved Pokemon. This gets immunity from EXs and GXs. Interestingly enough, when this releases, we've only got a month, in our format at least, of EXs left, but do remember we are going to have the expanded format, so having that immunity from EXs and GXs is really quite good. And if we look at the format at the moment, there are a whole bunch of decks that really rely on this. So let's take the example of Gardevoir. I mentioned Gardevoir earlier. Thing is, Gardevoir might smash Altaria, but Altaria can use this attack and then Gardevoir can't do anything. Now you're only doing 50, so even if you had a choice band and do 80, you're still free hit KOing. Little bit of a pain, but then again you're free hit KOing while having immunity from EXs and GXs. Now in the very short term, until the rotation hits, these Gardevoir decks will be able to use Gallade, but that's not going to get a 1-hit KO. This is looking very interesting indeed. And let's face it, we're moving into a format where the vast majority of good decks have EX and GX main attackers, or really just GX. Buzzwole and Ultra Necrozma really are looking like the best Pokemon in the upcoming format. And as it stands at the moment, you're going to have immunity from them. Now, there are some pretty good non-EX, non-GX attackers, but the majority of them are not going to be able to hit to 200. And that's the other thing here. It's not just that you get immunity from EXs or GXs, it's that your opponent then has to have a non-EX, non-GX that can hit to 200, else you've got time to heal and all of that good stuff. It doesn't hit very much damage, but we've seen plenty of formats in the past where a Pokemon comes around with an attack like this that gives it just the right immunity, and it can win game after game after game. As a side note, you know what would be really good to stop this? Pokemon Ranger. You know what's rotating just about as soon as this comes out? Pokemon Ranger. This could potentially steal some games. Now, of course, what your opponent is going to want to do is use Guzma to just take out bench Pokemon instead. But if your opponent doesn't have a good non-EX, non-GX, and you have no bench Pokemon, this will just win you the game. Even so, they've still got to find Guzma enough to take 6 prizes before you win the game. This could actually, on its own, win you a bunch of games. Second attack, 1 water, 1 fairy, 1 colourless, so we've got the obligatory really awkward attack cost for dragon Pokemon. 110 damage, not affected by effects on the defending Pokemon. It's basically Shred. And we've seen Shred on a million different dragon Pokemon over the past few years. Dialga-GX. Let's just, use that as an example. Though I could have used like a million other GXs instead. Dragon Pokemon. Dragon Pokemon have Shred. It goes through all this stuff. So I suppose if you're against a Glaceon, that means that you can, in fact, hit it. Or indeed, if you've got one Altaria against another Altaria, then they do 50 to you. But then, of course, you can shred through that and do 110 to them. We do then run into the really awkward thing of the attack cost. Fairy Water Colourless is not easy. The good news is Dragon Pokemon are finally getting a way around this. And it's not a reprint of Double Dragon Energy. I think at this stage it's fair to assume we're not getting a reprint of Double Dragon Energy. I would feel really confident that it's not happening. But that's okay. We've got Zinnia, which I mentioned before. We have got Drampa from Dragonstorm, which is just a really nice card that allows you to attach 1 basic energy from your discard to one of your dragon Pokemon. And then I would say you've got Latias Prism Star here, but you actually don't. Latias is my new baby daughter's spirit Pokemon. She doesn't need an animal, she needs a Pokemon. This is the one. Go watch my Latias video, I explain it much better in there. Latias, for 1 colourless energy, attaches from your discard 1 basic energy to each of your benched basic dragon Pokemon. So unlike Drampa, unfortunately, it can only do it to your basic dragon Pokemon. And this is the problem here. Because Swablu is normal/flying type, which means that it's either going to be a normal type in the trading card game, colourless, or a flying type in the trading card game, colourless. Which means you're not actually going to be able to use Latias Prism Star. And let's be super, super clear about this. If you could use Latias Prism Star as a starter for this, it would make Altaria a million times better. But you can't, so it doesn't. You've still got Drampa, you've still got Zinnia, but not being able to use Latias Prism Star here is actually a real pain, and it makes me very sad indeed. Having said that, going back to the attack, which I'm assuming is called Shred, they always are, it's good. Firstly, it's 110, and if you're hitting 80, 80, 80 every turn, you do need a bigger attack at some point to just take key KOs. This can do it. And secondly, sometimes you're going to come across Pokemon that for one reason or another have immunity, like opposing Altaria, and this will work quite nicely. As for the GX attack, 1 fairy, 1 colourless, your opponent's active Pokemon is now asleep, heal all damage from all of your Pokemon. It is Primarina's GX attack, which is exactly the same as the as of yet unreleased but coming out soon Solgaleo GX2's GX attack, but it also puts your opponent to sleep. And it's not for a double colourless, it's for a fairy colourless, which makes it a little bit more of a pain in the neck, but, there's nothing we can really do about that, so let's not worry our pretty little heads about it. It's not the best GX attack ever, but it actually could work beautifully here. Because if your opponent can't draw into their Guzma, they hit you but don't KO, and you might be swapping between Altaria, so you've got immunity, and your opponent can't 2 or 3 hit KO because you're swapping Altaria, and then during a key turn, you use a GX attack to heal them all off. Although do bear in mind, when you use a GX attack, you will be breaking the lock so your opponent can attack you with EX and GX Pokemon. It's not the best GX attack ever, but it's not bad. And the great news is, it is for the same attack cost as the main attack here, which I do like very much indeed. Regular viewers will know I am not a fan of GX attacks that encourage you to put extra energy on just for the GX attack that you can only use once per game. I think the Shred attack is a nice bonus. I think the GX attack is a nice bonus. But I think this first attack has got legs, and maybe it's not a deck on its own. Maybe you play it with something like Dragonite. I love Dragonite. I'll try and remember to pop a link to the video about it in the description, but I like Dragonite when you can use Lance to bring it out cheekily mid-game, which means you need a Pokemon to use in the earlier game, and that is where Altaria comes in. You might not use Altaria for the whole game, but slowing it down long enough to use Lance Prism Star to get Dragonite out, that could work. Either way, we are starting to get some really interesting dragon Pokemon. The most annoying thing about Altaria though, and it really does make me sad, Swablu isn't a dragon Pokemon, so we're not getting a basic dragon Swablu. We've never had one before, and I see absolutely no reason why we would possibly get a Swablu now. Well, there isn't a colourless. There was a water one at some point, a Delta species, but we're not getting a dragon Swablu, which means that we're not actually going to be able to use Latias Prism Star, which does hurt it. Either way, I'm going to be giving this between 3 and 4 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies. That would be barbaric. I think there's a lot of potential in the first attack, but the fact that everyone's playing Guzma and the fact that it doesn't do a huge amount of damage could hurt it, and the awkward attack cost is not helped by the fact that you can't use Latias Prism Star. But I want to know what you think about Swablu and Altaria and this whole deal, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and so on, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do just that. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.